Okay. Before working on SoundSelf, I spent most of my professional time doing sound design for games. This is my studio. It's kind of a mess. It's chaos, but that's sort of how I work. I just like having access to lots of different toys and experimenting messily with things. And sometimes things sound good, and hopefully they sound good. Working on SoundSelf, there are some really unique challenges to creating this rich soundscape. It's not the game is based on drones. All of the audio is based on drones, and I'm going to play a little bit of SoundSelf here so you can hear that. Ooh. Let me see. Let me make sure that we can see this right now. All right. The idea here being the whole point of SoundSelf is to create a really intimate bond between the player and the experience, and the way that I do that is through sound, is through connecting the sound of the game to the player's voice. So it's really important that it's more important how the sound feels when you're chanting to it than how it sounds, which is really weird and interesting, and means that whenever I'm doing sound design for SoundSelf, I'm going oh along with the sounds I'm making. So there are certain kinds of sounds I'm really attracted to with regards to inducing a trance state, which is what the function of SoundSelf is. I'm really attracted to shamanic drumming, those sorts of rhythms helping guide a person deeper into a trance and then out of a trance. Although I haven't experimented with that in SoundSelf yet, we're going to be doing that. I'm also interested in singing bowls. These are things that have been used as tools for meditations for years and years and years and years. And I'm by no means a traditionalist, but there's a reason that these particular kinds of instruments have become tools for meditation. And so I'm piggybacking off of the hundreds and hundreds of years of cultural evolution in selecting and fine-tuning these tools in SoundSelf. And I had a really wonderful, just magical recording session with a woman named Tina Rodriguez 2 days ago, which I want to share the results of with you now. She is a vocalist, a very talented vocalist, and also plays singing bowls beautifully. And one of the cool things about singing bowls is the way the sound feels like it's moving through your body. And I wanted to capture that for SoundSelf. So here are some recordings I got. So I've got this new binaural microphone, which I've been playing with and really enjoying. And this is the first thing I did with it. I really wanted to capture that sensation of tones moving literally through your body. So if you have headphones now, it would be a really good time to put them on. The first thing I did, if you look here, here's Tina with the bowls. I set up the binaural microphone such that theoretically it would sound like the bowl is inside of your body. And this didn't work, but I mean, it didn't position the sound kind of in your belly like this picture. In this picture, you know, I would expect that to feel like it's in the belly. But what's so magical about singing bowls, that sensation that the sound moves through your body regardless of whether it's actually in your body, sort of sabotaged me here in that it didn't matter where I placed the bowl. So here's I think this one is a binaural. Yeah, here's the binaural recording of the singing bowls. I'll raise that up for you. Let me grab another one. So because of it's because of the phase relationships, the sound is coming from this round object, and the phase of the sinusoidal sound tricks your body into thinking that the sound is coming from over here, inside of your skull, and it doesn't matter where the bowl is positioned, it will still produce that effect. I actually tried doing the same recordings, but with the microphone, with the binaural microphone positioned directly in front of it, and it really didn't make a difference. Wait, here they are. You still feel the sound moving through your right ear and your left ear and in your head. So in SoundSelf, what I do, I take a sound like this, and again, the point is that it feels good to chant with. Oh, like this. So, I want to be able to dynamically move the sound with your voice, depending on what your voice has been doing, short-term, long-term. One trick I really like to do is fade from one loop into another loop, depending on whether or not you're chanting. So here's what I did with the singing bowl sounds. Pretty simple. You just feel those tones moving through you. Oh, no, that's the wrong one. Here it is. So, I call that one inside. There's a subtle difference between that one and this one. This one pulses, but it doesn't feel like it's in your body. It kind of feels like it's outside because it doesn't have those weird phase relationships, because I collapsed the signal. But the one I previously showed does. So imagine if you're playing SoundSelf, it'll move from this sound into this sound if you begin chanting. Oh. So it feels like this sound is coming from out here and moving into your body. I think that's cool. Also, I like to play with distortion a lot. Especially, I find the right kind of distortion makes something feel really good to chant with, and it also just totally changes the mood of the sound. So, in this case, I'm using Isotope Trash 2 a lot because it's awesome. So we've also got some flanging going on there, which a really slow flange, which I think is really cool. I want to show you this tool because I really, really love it. So this gives me a lot of control over the nature of the distortion. And what I do is I just play with this and chant with it until it sounds really good. And I try to put a different distortion onto every different loop, even if it's just a pitch difference, so that just to introduce a little more dynamism into the game. So finally, something I've been learning how to do. I've been kind of having to relearn how to be a sound designer for this project because the needs, like I pointed out earlier, are so different from anything else I've ever worked on before. Previously, most of the things I did were there wasn't a lot of dynamism in the sounds themselves, and I figured the dynamism would come in the interactivity. So Let me show you some of my older sounds. Here we go. Again, you hear the difference between the distortion and the not distortion. I like this one a lot. And here's some more recent ones. Pretty flat sounds. They have to be monotonous because of the way SoundSelf selects sounds and plays back. They have to be monotone. But my philosophy on this has changed in playing the game so much and watching people play it a lot to wanting to introduce a lot more dynamism and rhythms into the sounds themselves, even if they're pitched differently, and so it doesn't have a traditionally beautiful musical relationship with the rest of the sounds. It'll still, your mind, which is a pattern finding device, is just going to dwell into rhythms and go deep into them, and I think the more complex the relationship, the more complex the relationship between rhythms, the more complex and deeper that trance can go. So here's an experiment I've been doing, again with another iZotope plugin called Stutter Edit. So remember this sound? I'm just trying to introduce some micro rhythms into it, so when it plays again and again, you'll hear those rhythms. Here, I'll play some of the other. So the only difference between these loops is the tone they are, because I don't want to pitch shift too much to the player's voice, so I use a whole bunch of different recordings, like you would with a virtual instrument. But I just play with the same stutter edit effect in different ways. This is a singing bowl, and it has a totally different feeling here, and I can pretty seamlessly morph between this sound and, say, this sound. Or this one. Alright, so that's the singing bowls, and I think those are really cool. So, next I want to move on to another really cool part of my recording session the other day, which is Tina's voice. Now, I've done voice has the voice sounds in SoundSelf have a really special significance, I think, in that they are pretty much the only non-abstract element of the game. Abstraction is really important to me to the game, but I make an exception to that for voice because it just feels so right to chant with other voices, and I have a lot of players playing the game feel like it's playing their voice back to them, when it's not. It's not yet anyway. It's voices of other people, and it just really builds that connection. And I've done some interesting things with voice, I think. Let's have a listen to some of the stuff we've done. Again, if you see here wet, dry, that would be play different sounds depending on whether you're chanting or not. And I can seamlessly fade between these. One of my favorite recordings is, let me see if I can find this. There we go. This is from here. A whole lot of people chanting in the Texas Capitol. If you look in the middle of that picture, you can see me with the microphone right in the middle. So I got some pretty cool stuff there. This is like a 500-person group home or something. So magical. And when people hear that in the game, it deepens the trance. It deepens the connection. Tina has a really just exceptional range and voice, and it's important for me to capture tones up and down the scale so that I'm not pitch shifting too much in the engine. But you'll notice here, just like in the previous pieces I was talking about introducing more dynamism, I've even got more dynamism in these vocal loops. So here's her voice. I don't even compress this. I really, really like the dynamic range of it. Some clicks there that I'm going to need to fix. Right up the scale, up to here. See if you can match her voice here. And again, I distort it and play with it a bunch. Here I've actually added I've pitch shifted her voice 2 octaves underneath as well, which gives it that extra oomph. You can kind of hear it. And again, I'll go right up to the top here. All right. So those are the things I was recording yesterday. There's one more thing I want to show, which is I kind of can't wait to implement this, and this is going to solve one of the design. I think this is going to solve one of the design challenges in SoundSelf. Is it here? Yeah, it's here. So the design challenge here is, right, this is a totally abstract experience, or as abstract as I can get it. Because by keeping it abstract, there's more room for the player to see a reflection of themselves in the experience. And it leaves room for a really huge range of experiences, and it's very personal depending on the player. I've had people come out of this, and having it be a fearful experience was never my intention, but I've had people come out of it feeling afraid, and I think that's because in the game you kind of confront yourself. This is something I haven't done before for SoundSelf though. See how she's dancing around a note? So the challenge is, in an abstract experience like SoundSelf, how do we give players an idea of how near or far they are from the end of the game? How to monetize that. Thanks, Davey. What I want to do is signal to a player kind of chapter breaks. And you'll get an idea through each chapter break, you know, maybe there will be a chapter break and then a shift in the audiovisual style. But it's important that a player feels that chapter break and feels like they're moving along a path with that. And to bookend the piece to bookend the SoundSelf experience, just like with shamanic drumming, the trance experience will be bookended with certain rhythms that send you deeper and then call you back. So I think having something like this, a voice with a lot of personality, something a lot less abstract than what I've been working with mostly, can serve that function to beckon you towards a new chapter and to let you know as you're playing it that you are progressing and winning. Anyway, I think this is beautiful. So, anyway, I've got a lot more recording to do this week, and I'm very excited about it. Today I'm doing some didgeridoo recordings at about 3, and then I'll be recording some sitars and other Middle Eastern instruments with Farid, who's an incredibly talented instrumentalist. Incidentally, not incidentally at all, but I've been very fortunate in SoundSelf with having the company of many musicians who have been extremely generous with their talent and time, and without that there's no way I could get the kind of dynamic sounds in SoundSelf as I've been trying to. So I'll be updating in a couple weeks on this blog with the really challenging part. I mean, recording it is and processing the sounds is one thing, but the really, really challenging and difficult part is implementing those sounds in a way that that lulls you into a trance and then at the end takes you out of it again. So I'll be going into some detail on that later on, but it's still a learning process for me. Yeah, thank you for tuning in.